Well, greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to the John Campea Show here on my YouTube channel. I am, of course, your host, John Campea, and it is an honor and a privilege to have you here joining me today on this fine Halloween morning. This is, of course, the show where we talk about all of our favorite things going on in the world of movies and entertainment, the fun stuff we get to talk about here on this show. And, of course, I'm doing this show live. I do this show live every day, Monday through Friday at 8 a.m. in the morning, and I also do it on the weekends, too, except usually around 9 o'clock, depending on what time I can drag myself out of bed. And yeah, today is Halloween. There's no chance I'm going to be able to do this entire show with this mask on my face because I'm having a hard time talking with this thing on. But I love having you guys here. Now, here's how today's show is going to go. I have picked out 5 topics that you guys have emailed into me. How do you email in a topic or a question for the John Campea Show? It's simple. You just email me anytime at john@thejohncampeashow.com. That's john@thejohncampeashow.com. And this is important, guys. Make sure you put that word topic in the description. I can't keep this on anymore. I can't talk properly. Okay. So make sure you put the word topic in the subject line of the email, or else I'm not going to see it. Also, very important, keep your emails to 90 words or less, or else I'm not going to read it. And even if I wanted to read it, I couldn't physically fit it on the screen because it would be too long. So keep those things in mind. Now, once I get through those questions and those topics that I've picked out from your emails, I'm going to go over to the live viewers and get what the live viewers are saying. And if you're watching this show live, you get a live question on simply by tweeting to me at John Campea. Now, don't do it yet. Wait till closer to the end of the show. I'll let you know when to start sending them in. But just start out a tweet with at John Campea, send it in, and then I'll get through just as many tweets as I possibly can. And maybe you can see your tweet pop up here on the bottom of my screen. All right. With all of that out of the way, let's get started with the first question of the day. And the first question today comes to us from Kenny Leguire, who writes, "Here's my question. With Shazam ready to roll in February in Toronto, Toronto, my home stomping grounds, how could WB keep the date for April 2019 when they'll start filming in February of 2018 for at least 6 months? It's a heavy visual effects movie that require at least 1 year of post-production with all the CGI. Look at Aquaman, Man of Steel, and Justice League. With all these movies needed 1 year to be well done with visual effects." Well, thanks a lot for the question, man. And there's a couple of things I think you need to understand, though, about the visual effects and all that kind of stuff. It does not necessarily take 1 year of visual effects. Not necessarily. At this point, we have no idea how many visual effects shots are going to be. And I guarantee you there's not going to be as many visual effects shots as there are in Avengers or Justice League or things like that. On top of that, what we've seen is that studios for these big pictures now, what they do is they hire more and more and more visual effects artists. That's why now, when you try to sit through the end credits of a movie, you'll notice once you get to the visual effects credits, it is like at least 60 to 70% of the credits is just the visual effects people going by. Like 18 different visual effects companies with 5,000 visual effects artists going by and all that kind of stuff. So they've hired more and more and more people to work on this thing. And so their time frame that they need to get all the visual effects shots done that they need for their particular movie has been getting smaller and smaller and smaller. Also, I don't anticipate this is going to take the movie 6 months to actually shoot. Maybe it'll be 6 months if you include pickup shooting and reshoots and all that kind of stuff, which I'm sure they've planned well in advance. Maybe if you include all that stuff. But the principal photography of the movie isn't going to take that long. It just won't. So, but the other main thing here to keep in mind is this. Visual effects work does not start when the movie finishes shooting. That's not when visual effects work starts. Visual effects work, I guarantee you, for Shazam, has already started. I guarantee you that the visual effects work has already started with Shazam. Because long before they start shooting, they have the entire movie mapped out. They have their storyboards. They know exactly what shots they're taking, what visual effects they're going to need. They know all of this stuff in advance. And there's some stuff that require the physical footage before you can do it. Like there's some stuff that you can't do the visual effects work for until you get the footage, the film from the movie and the actual actors in front of the camera. Yes, but there's a lot of visual effects work that can be done before they even start rolling cameras. Like if you know in this shot, it's a green screen shot. And in the background of this green screen shot is going to be a factory with, this giant robot here and a bunch of molten steel pouring down over here. We know that's going to be in the movie. We don't need the actors in front of the camera to start preparing those visual digital backgrounds. We don't need that. So we can start working on that already. They have guaranteed you they have started working on this already. Just like they've already started putting the costumes together. They've already started their process of picking shooting locations. They've already done a lot of that work. And I also guarantee you that a lot of the visual effects works are already being done too. So by the time they start shooting in February of 2018, look, probably maybe like 20 to 30% of the VFX shots might already be done. Now, maybe a lot of the more complicated ones can't be done till after they start shooting and they get some actual footage in, but they've started on this movie. So don't worry about it. This is plenty of time. Plenty of time. They have time to kill. All right. They really do. This is not going to be an issue. If anything goes wrong with Shazam, it isn't going to be because it was rushed. They're not rushing it. They've planned a perfectly reasonable amount of time to do it. So don't worry about it. Everything's fine. Everything's fine. Other things might go wrong, but as far as rushing it goes, don't even worry about it. They've planned perfectly. All right, let's move on now to the next question. And the next question today comes to us from Yash Rajput, who writes, with The Greatest Showman releasing 1 week after The Last Jedi, what do you think are the chances of it doing good at the box office? Also, what are your thoughts on The Greatest Showman? Well, okay, Jose, just one quick little thing I got to take care of here. There we go. The thing about The Greatest Showman is that when it comes to the box office question about how's it going to do, this is exactly what counter-programming is. Counter-programming is when you can put up another movie against a potential blockbuster, but your movie is clearly going after a different audience or a different base demographic than the big blockbuster is. So The Greatest Showman, this is nothing like Star Wars The Last Jedi. I mean, it's musical, it's singing, it's a period piece, it's romance and love, and it's all that kind of stuff. It is all the things that The Last Jedi is not. The Last Jedi is action and adventure and mythology and all those good things. The Greatest Showman is another set of all wonderful things, but it's a different set of all wonderful things that's going after a different demographic. So let's look at another, if we want to use Star Wars as an example. When The Force Awakens came out, the studio put out that Tina Fey movie with Amy Poehler. What was it? Sisters. Sisters did pretty well because it was counter-programming. It was aiming for all those people who weren't going to go see The Force Awakens. And I believe The Greatest Showman, releasing on Christmas Day, which is a huge day for moviegoing, that's a totally different movie than The Last Jedi. I honestly think The Greatest Showman is completely immune to The Last Jedi. I really do. I think it's completely immune. I think it's going to get its audience, and I think it's going to get just about, not exactly, there will be some effect, but it's going to get close to whatever audience it would have got, even if it wasn't for The Last Jedi there. Honestly, the bigger threat to The Greatest Showman financially is other movies that are counter-programming that might be playing at the time. So those might be the movies that are the greater threat than Star Wars Last Jedi, so it's fine. What are my thoughts on The Greatest Showman? I cannot wait for this movie. When the trailer for Greatest Showman came out, I had to watch it like 8 or 9 or 10 times. I swear to God, I just loved it. I felt like the trailer by itself was a beautifully made piece of art. I loved it. And obviously, I'm a big fan of Hugh Jackman. I'm obviously a big fan of Rebecca Ferguson. I'm a big fan of Zac Efron. I think Zac Efron is a tragically underrated actor. And the story looks brilliant. There was emotion in those trailers. I loved it. Honestly, I think this movie might delay me seeing The Last Jedi for the 5th, 6th, or 7th time. I might delay my 5th, 6th, or 7th viewing of The Last Jedi just so I can go and watch this, because this looks spectacular to me. I'm excited about it. What do you guys think? Have you guys seen the trailers for The Greatest Showman? Jump into the comment section. Let me know if you're looking forward to it. I think it's going to be spectacular. I cannot wait for this movie. All right, let's move on now to the next question. And the next question today comes to us all the way from Muhamer Nuhi, who writes, "Hey, John. I just rewatched The Nice Guys recently and remembered how much I love the movie. I also remembered Shane Dawson. Well, I think you mean Shane Black. Okay, so I also remember Shane Black saying he would love to do more sequels with those characters. If the movie was going to be a success, now, we know the latter part didn't happen. So how would you rate the possibility that we'll ever see a Nice Guys sequel? It all depends on how many languages you can say the word zero in. Goose egg, nada, niente, niet, nope. No, we're never going to see a Nice Guys sequel. Unless some benefactor with just tens of millions of dollars burning a hole in their pocket decides to step up and say, screw it, I don't care if it makes money, and just makes and puts up the money for it, and that's not going to happen because nobody's lining up to throw away tens of millions of dollars for nothing. It's not going to happen. Look, the Nice Guys made just over, are you ready for this? I believe the grand total worldwide, was like $60-something million. Not $160-something million, like 60-something million. It only made about $30-something million domestically. Didn't make much more when you added in the international box office as well. It just flopped, which is a damn shame because this movie is awesome. Not good, it's awesome. This movie is terrific on every level. And once again, another example of why I want to slap people in the face when I hear them go, Hollywood doesn't make original movies anymore. Just shut up. Just shut up. Yes, they do. They make more original films today than any other time in Hollywood history. They make more reboots and sequels and stuff like that than any other time in history too. That's absolutely correct. But they also make more original great films. The problem is, Cletus, that when they do put out a great original piece of filmmaking like Nice Guys, you don't go see it. You go watch Transformers, Dawn of Extinction, The Last Night 5. That's what you go and watch. And that's fine. There's nothing wrong with going to see Transformers, The Last of the Five, Extinction 5. There's nothing wrong with going to see that if that's what you want to see. That's great. But don't sit there and verbal diarrhea out this whole nonsense that makes you think you look cool by going, Hollywood doesn't make original films anymore. Yes, they do. They make tons of them. And this is a great example of one that was out there. It was on point. It was fantastic. It was wonderful. It was everything movie audiences would love. And people didn't even go out to support it. It drives me nuts. But the financial realities said that no, it's not going to happen. They're not going to make another one. And that's really a sad thing. Now, who knows? Maybe they'll give it the Lethal Weapon treatment, and in 4 years, it'll be a Fox TV show. The Nice Guys, the Fox TV show. You know what? The premise of The Nice Guys, maybe that would work as a TV show. I'm not poo-pooing that idea. Maybe that would work, but you're not going to see a big budget feature film. Unfortunately, it's the sad truth, but it is what it is. All right, now let's move on to the next question. And the next question today comes to us from Josh Williamson, who writes, do you think Netflix did the right thing in canceling House of Cards after season 6 due to the allegations towards Kevin Spacey, with the claims against him still not having been confirmed? I'm horrified by these claims and hope they're not true. I'm a big fan of his. Well, thanks a lot for the question, man. And yeah, so this became a very real issue in the world of entertainment when not only was there, one celebrity is accusing another celebrity of something, it's now very tangible. Netflix has stepped up and said we are canceling it. After the current season that's about to come out, we're canceling the show. We're not going to do it. We've notified everybody involved. We're going to cancel the show, blah, 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 blah. So the question is, was that the right move for Netflix to do? And if you heard me talk about the Kevin Spacey situation yesterday, this is before they canceled House of Cards. I just said repeatedly over and over again, I'm not qualified. I am not qualified to give a real opinion, an informed opinion about that whole situation. Other than the fact that if it's all true, it's horrible. That's all I can say. I have two different trains of thought on whether or not, and maybe you guys are about to scream at me through your computer monitors. That's fine. I am not here to say what I think you'll agree with. I'm here to say what I think and allow you to weigh what you think. That's fine. But I have two different minds on this. On the one hand, there's a part of me that gets really concerned, even just from a sociological point of view. There's a part of me that gets really concerned because what do we have here? We have a situation where one person says another person did something 30 years ago that the accused is saying they have no recollection of. And it happened 30 years ago. There's no way to prove it. There's no way to substantiate it. And that one accusation from somebody, and I'm not saying that is not, the accusation isn't true. I'm not saying that at all, okay? Let me be very clear about that. But the fact is, we have an accusation from a single person about an event that happened 30 years ago, with nothing to back it up or substantiate it at this point. And punitive actions are being taken against the guy who's being accused. Now, take out of the situation Kevin Spacey. Take him out of the situation. I'm just here's our scenario. Somebody has made a claim that this other person did something 30 years ago that can't be proved. And as a result, the accused is facing radical repercussions right now. Like, he's the executive producer and everything on that show, House of Cards, and his show's being ripped away. The show that has over 50 Emmy nominations is now being ripped away from him. He's on the front page of every news site. His name's being dragged through the mud, all that kind of stuff. And if he did it, then fine. But it reminds me a little bit about the old, the Spanish Inquisition. Because back in the days of the Spanish Inquisition, if you didn't, and here's the whole reason why in our society we have a system in place that is supposed to be innocent until proven guilty. Because like back in the days of the Spanish Inquisition, if somebody just didn't like their neighbor and they just wanted to get rid of their neighbor, or somebody didn't like a business rival and they just wanted to get rid of the business rival, go to the authorities and say, hey, Johann is a heretic. I'm pretty positive he's a heretic. That's all that was needed. That's all that was needed. At that point, Johann got arrested, imprisoned, whatever. Facts, proof, all that kind of stuff didn't matter. You had a jilted ex-husband, you had a jilted ex-wife that had something out for you. You better hope they don't go to the authorities and go, hey, Sarah there, my ex-wife, she's a heretic. And all they had, that's all they needed was somebody to accuse. And that was it. All it needed was an accusation. That's all they needed, and the person lost their life. I worry a little bit that we don't snowball. And granted, this is a slippery slope argument. It's an absolutely slippery slope arguments are the worst types of arguments. And granted, this is kind of a slippery slope thing. But what I'm a little worried about for our culture and society is that we revert back to that mentality that all it takes is an accusation. That's all it takes. And poof, you're destroyed. And that's a dangerous place for our society to be in. Because, I mean, all it takes today, like you are only one, disgruntled former coworker of yours who maybe thought you got treated a little bit better than the boss treated them, or maybe thought you got the promotion, really they deserved it, and they decided to go, you know what, that guy Eddie, he did this, and boom, that's all it takes is the accusation, and now your life is destroyed. And that's a dangerous place to be. Now, granted, for too long, and I don't know what the answer is, I am unqualified, for too long there's been too heavy of an onus put on victims to prove it. I mean, and granted, you got to be able to back it up a little bit. Yes, absolutely. But I think we've put far too much, historically, we've put too much onus to the point where we're victimizing the victim all over again. We needed a change. The pendulum needs to swing a little bit the other way. It absolutely does. What I just hope that doesn't happen for the sake of our society is that it swings all the way over and becomes an extreme on the other side. So that's my one way of thinking, that I do get a little worried that, hey, within 48 hours of an accusation being made about something that happened 30 years ago that can't be substantiated at this point at any rate, and this guy, Kevin Spacey at this point, is already suffering repercussions from it based on an accusation. However, I also have another way of looking at it. And the other way I have of looking at it is, let's look at this from Netflix's point of view. Netflix is a business, okay? Netflix is not a social commentary. It's not the social standard. It's not trying to set social rules. Netflix is simply a business. And now you're the CEO of Netflix. And one of your big marquee flagship shows, probably the flagship show of your network, they're in the midst of the current climate. There's been this accusation against the star of the show. What are you supposed to do? Yeah, you cancel the show. You could say, no, it's in principle, it's not right to cancel the show. You can say that, absolutely. But the fact of the matter is, you'd be sticking your head in the sand if you don't acknowledge that this is going to affect that show, and it's going to affect consumers with how they interact with your body. And therefore, while on one hand I agree, I'm cautious about what direction we as a society are going into, where simply an accusation from anybody can destroy a person's life. At the same time, we live in a real world where Netflix is faced with this scenario where it's like, this is a big deal, and this is not healthy for us as a company to have it on. Now, then there's also, is there a little bit of hypocrisy in there? Because they're not canceling the show immediately. Like, they've already started shooting their next season, and they're not canceling that because they've already put money into it. So they're going to move ahead and still do that. So I don't believe that Netflix has canceled it for moral reasons. Not at all. They canceled it for business reasons because this put them in a very precarious position business-wise. And so, look, again, it comes right back down to everything I said yesterday. I am unqualified. The pendulum has for far too long been against the victims in these situations. I do fear that the pendulum goes too far the other way now, where simply an accusation can destroy somebody's life. And at the same time, I see where Netflix is coming from, because from a business point of view, it makes sense. I do not have the answers. And if you're honest with yourself, you don't have the answers either. This is a horrible, terrible, just dreadful situation that we're in. Unfortunately, a situation that we're in because victims for far too long of assault have been forced to be quiet. And that's why we have this terrible kind of environment that we have now, because of all the wrongs that have been done to the victims for so many decades and decades and decades and decades. So it's a complex, convoluted thing that is now creeping its way into our entertainment. Like now, a lot of people's favorite show is going to be pulled off the air. It's not just because of what's happening now, it's because of what's been going on for decades, and it's a convoluted mess of a situation that I simply do not have the answer for, but it's definitely one worth us all having discussion and some discourse about, to talk about. I almost said intercourse instead of discourse. How's that for a Freudian slip? Anyway, okay, thanks a lot for the question, man. I'm sure you guys have plenty to say on that issue and on that topic, and I look forward to seeing what you guys have to say. All right, now, I said I would save a little bit of time at the end of the show to take your live Twitter questions. I got one more email topic to take, and then I'm going to go to the Twitter board. So start getting your Twitter questions ready for those of you who are watching live. All right, the next and final email question today comes to us from Patreon supporter Jamie. And Jamie writes, "Hey, John, do you think we will see the Abomination in Infinity War, or maybe he might come back in Phase 4? Well, thanks a lot for the question, man. And you know what? When it comes to comic book movies, this is actually one of my favorite topics, is Abomination. Now, not a ton of people absolutely loved the Ed Norton Hulk film. I quite enjoyed the Ed Norton Hulk film. But one of the best things about it was Abomination. A true villain who could actually go toe-to-toe with Hulk. That is great. And the fact that he was a little smarter than Hulk and all that kind of stuff, he's a great character. Now remember, at the end of that Hulk film, he's still alive. Hulk doesn't kill him. And then in one of the digital short films that actually had Clark Gregg in it, the guy who plays Agent Coulson, they're talking whatever, and they're talking about how they've got Abomination, but they don't say Abomination's name. They say the character's name, and it's like a European name, and I'm forgetting the name of the character. Sorry. They say, we still have, for argument's sake, let's say Blonsky. We still got Blonsky in detention at this Supermax prison, right? So he's still alive. He's still there. Abomination is still in custody. He's still in prison. So there is a lot you can do with bringing back Abomination. And there's great ways you could use him, whether he's the main antagonist in something again, or whether he becomes a right-hand guy to Thanos or somebody else later. He is pure physical threat. And that is something that you really need to have in this age of where these heroes are getting really powerful. You got Hulk and you got Thor, and Iron Man almost seems invincible sometimes. To have a legitimate threat who could take them all out. Like, where do you go after Ultron? Abomination could be the answer to that. I love Abomination. I would love to see the return of Abomination. I think that would be amazing. All right, guys. Well, that will do it for the email questions today that I picked out. It's now time for us to go over to the Twitter board. I'm going to find out what you guys who are watching live are talking about or want us to talk about right now. So let's take this. First question comes to us from A. Anoy, who writes, John, what topic will we give for the questions for your weekly hero show? Oh, that's a good question. For those of you who don't know, a couple of days ago, I started a new weekly show called The Weekly Hero. It happens on Fridays, and I do it live, where not only do I recap all the biggest news from superhero movies, but I also do a rundown of all the superhero television from that week, and I proclaim and I anoint a best superhero show of that week. Surprisingly enough, last week, best of the week was actually that week's episode of Arrow, a show I've been very critical of the last few years, but I thought last week's episode of Arrow was better than all the other episodes of all the other superhero shows. And we got a ton of superhero shows. We got The Gifted. We got Gotham. We got Arrow. We got Flash. We got Legends of Tomorrow. I already mentioned The Gifted. What were some of the other ones? Supergirl we've got there too. So a whole bunch of superhero shows to talk about those as well. I haven't actually determined what you should put in the subject line for a weekly hero. Let me think about that, and I will let you guys know as soon as I can. All right. And you know what? Before I move on, before I started the Twitter questions, I forgot to do my commercial break. Let me do my commercial break here pretty quick. And this is, of course, my daily shameless plug. You guys know I do this show. I no longer work for corporate overlords. I decided to leave the corporate overlords and not work for a corporation anymore. That means it takes my full time dedicated to doing these shows. And I'm only able to make these shows and produce these shows because of the support of my Patreon supporters. Listen, do me a favor. If you are somebody who enjoys my shows and you enjoy sitting around for a half hour or an hour a day watching my videos, head on over to www.patreon.com/John Campea. Get all the information about what it means to be a Patreon supporter, how my Patreon supporters make these shows possible, and what benefits there are to being a Patreon supporter. And maybe you'll want to become one of my Patreon supporters too, which would be just delightful. All right, with that out of the way, let's now go back to Twitter. And the next question on Twitter comes to us from Hevaper, who writes, John, do you think that the Flashpoint movie might actually be Justice League 2 instead of his standalone movie? Just a thought. Well, here's the thing about Flashpoint. A lot of people are just assuming that Flashpoint is just going to be the comic thing, or even that animated movie is just going to be that brought to life. Remember, just because they're calling it Flashpoint doesn't mean it's going to be the story Flashpoint that we got from the comic. It could be something totally different. Look at Days of Future Past. Yes, some fundamental structure things were there from the comic book Days of Future Past, but really Days of Future Past was just its own movie that just so happened to have the same title and had a couple of things in common with the comic book. But for the most part, X-Men Days of Future Past, which was an amazing movie, is just kind of a stand on its own movie. Flashpoint, I got a feeling, is pretty much going to be the same thing as X-Men Days of Future Past. It'll have some things in common with the Days of Future Past comic book to justify the title. But I think for the most part, they're just going to make their own story. And which is fine. I have no problem with that. Look how great it turned out for Captain America Civil War. Look how great it turned out for X-Men Days of Future Past. It can turn out that great for Flashpoint as well. I just got a feeling they're going to go their own direction. So I'm really not sure what they're going to do. I have a feeling it's not going to be Justice League 2. Kind of like in the way that Captain America Civil War was really Avengers 2.5. I don't think Flashpoint is going to be that. I think it's going to be its own thing. But we'll wait and find out. Maybe it will be. All right, next tweet comes to us from Markel, who writes, John, is Marvel missing out by not making good video game tie-ins with the MCU? The earlier attempts were bad, but they could try again. No, I think Marvel is just keeping their attention where their attention needs to be. Their attention is on their movies, and that's what they're doing, and that's what they're figuring on. And really, look, the video games could help them make some money, but it's not going to further their story. Marvel is most concerned with telling their stories, and in particular in the film medium. So I don't think they're missing out on anything, really. I think they're fine. Let's see. Next one comes to us from Logical Chaos, who writes, John, what is your best trailer of 2017? I have to think about it because I can't even remember what trailers came out this year. I mean, the Justice League trailer, not the most recent one, but that first Justice League trailer that dropped at Comic-Con, fabulous trailer. Greatest Showman, I just talked about. Fabulous trailer. I'm sure there's some other ones too that I jumped up and down about that said this is going to be like the best trailer of the year, but I'd have to think about it. I can't recall it just off the top of my head. Okay, let's go on to the next one. This one comes to us from Markel, who writes, John, thoughts on the upcoming Spider-Man reboot on PS4, and do you have any favorite superhero video games? Arkham City for me. Well, the Arkham stuff is really great. Favorite superhero video games. You know what the funny thing is when I go over my head, I mean, right now, if you want to count as a superhero video game, it's South Park Fractured Butthole. That one's really good. Most of my favorite video games of all time are either like X-Wing, TIE Fighter, World of Warcraft, StarCraft, Day of the Tentacle, was my favorite for Unreal Tournament. It was my favorite first-person shooter of all time. None of them are really superhero video games, oddly enough. The Arkham games are great, but none of them really rank up as my favorite video games of all time. Let's see. Next one comes to us from Tim Nomason, who writes, John, is Kevin Feige angry at Joss Whedon for now helping the DC universe? And how will this affect your eventual demise by Joss's ball? I have no idea what you're talking about. But no, Kevin Feige is not upset at Joss Whedon at all. Kevin Feige, look, I've explained this 1,000 times. Yes, there's healthy competition between Marvel and DC. Marvel wants to finish ahead of DC. But Marvel wants to finish ahead of them because they did great. They don't want to finish ahead of DC because DC did badly. That doesn't help anybody. Joss Whedon, yes, but Jeff Johns, Kevin Feige, they understand that the healthier the overall comic book genre is, the more money they're all going to make. So look, Kevin Feige doesn't mind at all that Joss Whedon is overdoing something for them right now, for DC right now. It doesn't bother him in the least. Because if anything, he needs Justice League to not be a disaster. Kevin Feige wants Justice League to be good and have audience like it and love it, because that makes the comic book genre healthier. That makes the audience improve their thinking of the comic book genre overall, which in turn helps Marvel. So no, you'd have to be, a blind dead toad on the road to think that for some reason Kevin Feige is mad at Joss Whedon for helping DC. Because if it wasn't Joss Whedon doing the directing, somebody else would be doing the directing. If anything, I believe Kevin Feige is happy Joss Whedon is doing it because that's going to make the comic book genre healthier. So anyway, there's that. Next one. Noriko writes, John, should Nightmare Before Christmas be watched Halloween or Christmas? You know, it's funny. A friend of mine and I had that conversation before. I really see it as a Halloween movie. I don't see Nightmare Before Christmas as a Christmas movie. I see it as a Halloween movie. I'm curious. You guys, let your voices be heard. Jump into the comments section. Is Nightmare Before Christmas a Halloween movie or is it a Christmas movie? Let us know what you think below. All right, let's move on to the next question. And the next question today comes to us from Homer Simpson, who writes, John, 2017 has been a really bad year for animation, and I'm afraid that Lego Batman will be the only movie worthy of the best animated picture at the Oscars. Well, don't get ahead of yourself just yet. I'm going to go see Coco in a couple of days, and I have talked to a couple of other people who have seen Coco, and apparently Coco is terrific. Apparently Coco is really, really good. So we'll see that. But overall, you're right. This has been a generally weak year for animated films. There have been a couple of years in recent memory that have been just fabulous years for animated film. Just great film after great film. This year has not been that year. The best so far clearly has been the Lego Batman movie. I agree with that 100%. But don't give up on the year entirely just yet, because we've got that little film by a little studio called Pixar coming called Coco that apparently is quite good. All right, we move on now to the next tweet. And the next tweet comes to us from Trevor Valentine, who writes, John, what do you think about the trailer of Ferdinand, animated movie starring John Cena? Interesting to me and my little cousin. I'll be honest, I did not like it. I didn't like it. Now, I've seen lots of trailers that I haven't liked that I have end up liking the movie. Here's hoping for that. But I'll be honest with you, the trailer for Ferdinand did nothing for me at all. So here's hoping that the movie's much better than the trailer. But honestly, if you're asking my opinion on the trailer, I didn't think it was very good. All right, let's try this one. John, what do you think of the VidAngel video service? Well, I talked about this once. For those of you who don't know, and honestly, I think it's changed now, I think. But anyway, the way this service called VidAngel used to work, well, it's a video streaming service, but what it did was it gave you as the audience member the option to watch the movie censored. You can actually tell the service, if I'm remembering it correctly, but the basics of it are this. Let's say you wanted to watch movie W1. I'm just making up a movie title, but you wanted to watch W1, the movie. Okay. Put on. But gives the option. I don't want to see any nudity. Like I'm watching this and I happen to have my kid with me and I've never watched W1. I don't know if there's nudity. If there's any nudity, just skip out the scenes that have nudity. Maybe you think I don't like hearing I don't like seeing gratuitous violence. I don't like seeing torture. Okay, you can put in the option that I don't want to watch torture, and it gives you the option to do that. There are some people who scream censorship at that, but that is not censorship. Censorship is when somebody forces a creator to not say something or to not do something. In this case, the creators are still making whatever the movie they want. Me making a choice for myself. Now, don't get me wrong. I love filthy. Bring on the filthy. But for me to make a choice by myself for just me, I'm not making a decision about what other people can and can't watch. I'm not making a decision about what other people can and can't say. I am making a decision for me personally about what I want to consume. For me. And if that's the case, then I'm sorry, no matter how much you yell and how much you scream, by definition, that is not censorship. Censorship is when you prevent other people from being able to watch it. Censorship is when you prevent artists from being able to say or do what they want to say or put out in their art form. That's censorship. You making a decision for you, that's not censorship. By definition, that is not censorship. And if I buy a McDonald's hamburger, right? This, you may think this doesn't apply, but this totally applies. If I buy a McDonald's hamburger, guess what? That burger is mine now. This is now mine. And if I want to go home and take the pickles off, you say, John, you're censoring the sandwich artists at McDonald's who put their energy and their creativity into making that hamburger with pickles. If you take the pickles out, you're censoring the McDonald's people. No, I'm not. It's my effing burger. If I want to take the pickles out, I can take the pickles out. You are fully free, McDonald's, to sell me a burger with pickles on it. You can do that. I'm not going to stop everybody else in my neighborhood from having pickles on their burgers if that's what they want. But you damn well better not tell me I don't have the right to take the pickles off my burger if I don't like pickles. That's not censorship. That's just me making my own decision for what I want to consume. And that is the exact same principle for movies. Guess what? Once I buy that movie's mine. The courts have upheld that. Remember, it used to be that you used to have a physical copy of a movie. You weren't allowed to make a backup of it. Courts got rid of that. You are allowed to make a backup of your own movie. You can't share it, but you have to make a backup of your own movie. You own it. When I buy that movie, now that's my movie. And if I want to watch it without nudity, I have the right to watch it without nudity. If I want to watch it without swearing, but who would want that? I love nudity. But if I want to watch that movie without torture scenes, I have the right to watch it without torture scenes. You can watch it all you want with the torture scenes and the nudity and all that kind of, you have that right. I'm not stopping you from doing it. That would be censorship. Me making my own choice for me, that's not censorship. Now, granted, I like watching the movies the way the filmmakers intended them. That's the way I like to watch them. I never cut out anything out of a movie. But on its principle, and again, I think VidAngel might have changed, but I've had some serious debates with people about that. It's like, look, I like watching the movie as it is. That's how I like to watch a movie. I think that's the best way to watch a movie. But I will stand up and fight for anybody who says, yeah, but I want to watch this movie that I bought without the nudity. Then I will defend your right to say that because it's not censorship. It's just not. Anyway, all right, let's move on to the next topic. That's my thought on it. I'm sure you guys have some passionate opinions too. Some of you guys are out there who love pickles and you're just getting really mad at me right now. Okay, the next one comes to us from Matt Yamasaki. How many phases do you think the MCU could last? Who knows? It could last 20, 30, 40. I mean, it's right now the genre is really, really healthy and the MCU is really healthy. Could go on forever. It could stop right away. Who knows? No idea. Next one comes to us from Star Wars Therapy, who writes, John, really missed the mark on the, I don't know what HOC is. I have no idea. The Hall of... I don't know what you mean by HOC. So anyway, going to have to skip your question. Sorry about that. Let's see. Next question comes to us from CSCO Prian writes, John, why do you never accept email questions over 90 letters? It's your software's fault or just a made up rule? No. You can't send. No, I didn't say 90 letters. 90 words. 90 words or less. There's a couple reasons I don't accept 90 words or less. And that is because, for two reasons. One, people got in the habit of sending me email questions that are literally like chapters out of novels. Like they send these emails that are like this big. It's like, I don't have time. Like I'm already spending like 2 hours a day, like just reading through emails, picking out questions. I can't read these tomes. Secondly, like, let me just bring up something here. There's a physical amount of space that I have to actually put on the email questions. So that's why I ask people to keep it to 90 words or less, not 90 letters. Okay, some people in the chat board are saying that HSC was standing for House of Cards. So let me go back to this and just say, really missed the mark on the House of Cards. This is why people don't come out because of your line. Well, no. I reject that entirely. That is erroneous thinking. All right. Look, I agree that the pendulum for too long has been too far to one way, where it's like the victims are being victimized all over again, that the onus has been too heavy of an onus on the victims of these sorts of things. I completely acknowledge that, but I reject completely that the answer to the question is to do equally as bad of a thing, just completely the opposite direction, where to say an accusation should be enough to destroy a person's life. That is moronic thinking. That is absolutely socially destructive, moronic thinking. Because guess what? If you accept that we should we should not live in a society that we've been living in for the last number of decades, where somebody who's a victim, all the onus is on them, and we've put far too heavy of an onus on them, and that forces a lot of them to stay quiet. That's got to change. I completely agree with that. But I reject that the answer is to swing that pendulum all the way to the other extreme, where now, if you've got somebody that got passed over for promotion because you got it, that all they have to do is get on a blog and write, hey, Billy Bob once touched my kid. Can be completely untrue, and just have everybody just accept that. It's like, well, good enough. That person made an accusation. You should be fired from your job. You should lose your home. You should lose your career. You should have your name dragged through the mud. You should have your life destroyed. We cannot live in neither of these extremes are acceptable. And I don't know what the answer is. Look, I'm fully mad. I don't know what the answer is. But there has to be something in between this radical extreme of all the onus being on victims being victimized again, and this other radical extreme of, no, let's just live in a society where anybody can just hop on Twitter or Facebook or call a news agency and just make an accusation to get their enemy out of the way. We can't live in that sort of society either. There's a reason why our legal system put into place this whole notion of innocent until proven guilty. And I agree with you, for too long, the onus has been too heavily on the victim, but we can't go 100% the other way either. That's not good for society. There's got to be something in between. There has to be something in between. I'm not smart enough to know what the answer, to know what that in-between spot is. I'm not intelligent enough. That's why I'm not president of the United States. There's something I could say, but I'm not. That's why I am not the leader of the free world. That's why I'm not a governor. That's why I'm not a judge, because I am not smart enough to be the one to come up with that answer. But we need to come up with an answer. One that protects people from fraudulent accusations, but at the same time protects victims and gives victims an avenue without being so restrictive like we have been traditionally over the years. There has to be something in between. Anyway, so that's just my thought on that. Okay, couple more here. Let's see. This one comes to us from Harry J.A. Killiker writes, John, chances of a fourth Narnia movie. I enjoyed the others. Not a lot of people enjoyed the others. I liked the first one. I did. I liked the first one very much. But not a lot of people did enjoy the further ones. And they financially got worse and worse and worse. So I believe, look, the Chronicles of Narnia, Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, they're such mainstays in pop culture that I think at some point we're going to see them get remade. But an actual continuation of the franchise, I think we're past that, unfortunately. I don't think we're going to see that happen. It's possible, though. Anything is possible. Let's see. This one comes to us from Matt. John, what's the worst job you ever had? Worst job I ever had was probably, I worked one retail job in my life. I hated it. And you know what? This is back in the day when I was in my rock and roller days and I had like hair down to here, like I had super long hair. And I even cut my hair for this job. And I quit the job after a week. I was so mad that I cut my hair, but I was not. Look, I have huge respect for people who work in retail because you need a degree of emotional and temperamental strength to do that job that I simply do not have. I just wanted to bite the heads off of every single customer that came in for retail. I was no good at it. So I salute all of you guys out there who work in retail. You have a depth of strength that I could never have. So salutes, big salutes to you. This one comes to us from B. Dormammu, who writes, John, would you like to see a Martian Manhunter movie? Nope. I don't. Look, I know it's unpopular to say. I don't like the Martian Manhunter character. I think he's a dumb character. There, I said it. I think Martian Manhunter is a dumb character, which is fine. Look, I think they've done some interesting things with the character on Supergirl. Sure. But honestly, like, whenever I watch like any of the old like Justice League animated stuff or whatever, I'm not a Martian Manhunter fan. I'm sorry. I even think the name is dumb, but whatever. Okay, I'm going to take two more. Let's see. Why can't I get this to come up? Here we go. Okay. This one comes to us from Animal Guy XXX, who writes, John, what are your thoughts on Blood Diamond with Leonardo DiCaprio? Brilliant movie. Really great movie. I believe Leo got nominated for an Academy Award for that. And I understand he didn't win, but it's just a fabulous, another great example of Djimon Hounsou, who I'm a huge Djimon Hounsou fan. I think that dude's incredible. And here we go. The next one comes to us from Megale Paul, who writes, John, did you read the book, Audible, or both, the Star Wars canon novels you've read and or audiobooked? I do both. I've read one or two. I'll be honest with you, my option of choice for consuming novels these days is Audible. I use Audible more than anything else because I can actually now listen to a book while I'm driving, while I'm on the treadmill, while I'm going for my walks, whatever. I can just listen to it anytime. Whereas you have to have a very dedicated set of time to read a book. I have to have time that I'm not doing anything else and I can just lay in my living room and read my book. And I've done that. I still do that. I still pick it up once in a while. But for the most part, I do Audible. That's my consumption method of choice. All right, guys, that will do it for this installment of the John Campea Show. Covered some very heavy stuff, covered some very fun stuff. I want to hear what your thoughts are on all of this. Jump into the comments section below and let me know what you guys think. Hey, listen, guys, don't forget, a little bit later today, why did that come up? A little bit later today, it is Tuesday, the best day of the week, which means it is time for Star Wars Talk Tuesdays. So we've got that coming up at 1 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, doing it live today. It's just like the John Campea Show, but all we're going to do is talk Star Wars and Star Wars issues and Star Wars topics. And it is, again, the best day of the week. It's Star Wars Talk Tuesday today at 1 o'clock. Also, I'm testing out a new video series called, Anne's still home. I thought Anne had left for work already. I started a new series of video called Movie News Feed, the Movie News Feed, which is like a 3 to 5 minute quick summary of all the things going on in the world of movie news, especially focusing on those things that aren't the big major headlines, but are still things that true film fans will want to know about. I started that yesterday. Check it out. I need your feedback to let me know if it's something that you find useful or not, because if it's not useful, I'm going to stop doing them. But let me know if you find it useful and I'll keep doing them. The next episode of that comes up a little bit later today. So that will do it for me, guys. Thank you so much for joining me. My name's John Campea, and until the next video, bye-bye.